All right, everybody ready? Getting ready to go live here. All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the second 2020 Reopening Schools virtual forum. We're here to provide an update on the reopening of school and answer questions from families on the process of returning to school. This is the second of 3 forums this week with parents and community members. The final meeting is set for tomorrow at 10 a.m. The district has also held multiple meetings with teachers and staffs, in addition to two town hall forums in July. Videos of those meetings are currently on midlakes.org. We also continue to accept questions from families submitted to the Mid-Lake Schools Facebook page and to the Reopening Schools at Mid-Lakes email. I am Todd Clausen, Public Relations Coordinator for the Phelps-Clifton Springs Central School District. I'm serving as moderator for a discussion tonight. With me tonight are Matt Sickles, Superintendent of Schools, Mr. Frank Rossi, Principal of the Secondary School, Mr. Chris Moyer, Elementary School Principal, Mrs. Tammy Wood, Director on the Committee of Special Education, Dr. Grace Fryer, School Physician, and Mr. John Lombardi, Athletic Director, and also now Health and Safety Coordinator for the district. We thank everybody, our panelists, as well as staff and families for participating in this forum. It's just as important for us to hear from you and your comments and your questions as it is for us to respond to those questions. With that, let's get right into it. Mr. Sickles, I'll start with you. I know we talked a little bit yesterday in our other forum about changes to the district calendar and the beginning of school. I was hoping if you can just go over some of those changes once again and provide us a little bit of an overview of what families can expect coming to school.
I'm muted. Sorry about that.
I was about to say.
I was muted, yeah. At the board meeting on Monday night, the Board of Education approved an amended school calendar for the 2021 school year. And the purpose of the changes that they approved were to give our staff more time to engage in training and preparation for the start of school. So the first day of students will be Monday, September 14th. Staff will return on Tuesday, September 8th, and they will engage in training and preparation on September 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th. So the first day of school for students will be Monday the 14th, whether they're engaging in remote instruction or in-person instruction through the hybrid model. There are some other changes resulting from that. Wednesday, December 23rd and Friday, March 12th will become days of attendance and instruction. But the new school calendar is now posted on the school website for everybody to check.
And that's a great lead-in to something that we wanted to mention tonight. So I'm going to see if I can share my screen here a little bit, and we'll dig into or maybe Bill needs to give me some screen sharing. But I want to remind everybody that they can go to midlakes.org and review plans of the reopening. It's broken out by several different categories, so you can look at things like school schedules, attendance, remote learning, learn a little bit more about the hybrid model and its details. We'll get into some of those things tonight, but there's a bevy of information on the midlakes.org website under a special reopening Mid-Lakes tab right on top of the page. And it's also placed elsewhere, but you can go there and there's updates that are being added there. There's some health and safety tips, a whole bunch of other information that we're working to share with families. And
I may have to do it here. Let's see.
Yeah.
I can share my screen.
Okay, so you're into it right now. Right. And you can see right at the top of Matt's browser window there's a reopening Mid-Lakes tab. And if you hover your browser over it or click on it, you want to get the mouse up, you can come to this page and just click right through. So you can see there's different sections in there that we've highlighted, fact sheet. There's some safety tips provided by CDC and departments of health. And we're constantly adding to that. An FAQ document will be going up for families to kind of help them sort through some of the common questions that we've been hearing a lot. Matt's clicked on the school schedules there, so you can see. And what we're finding in some cases is, people are coming to us with questions, and that's perfectly fine. But let's say we're not available late at night or at a different time of day. You can click on here, and you can kind of see this is a model of the elementary school schedule. There's one up there for the high school block scheduling as well. So you can click around, view it, share it. You can just really dig in. You can see right there too, there's also a Publix presentation tab where we're linking all the videos that we've had. So district administrators have presented some things to the Board of Education. There's been some other town halls, and we're adding to this page. So it's really kind of like your one-stop shop for resources relating to the plan. And you can see there's documents from the state, the guidance that are up there from Department of Health and state ed as well. So before we get much further into some of the overview and to some of the plans, since we have Dr. Fryer here tonight, I'd like to kick off a couple of questions to her about perhaps just starting. What are the things as students or families are looking to return to school, as the little ones start to think about coming back to campus? What should families be looking at with their students, either signs and symptoms of COVID, and what get them into the mindset about, okay, hey, we're coming back to school, and some things that they should be looking at.
So, right, I think first of all, everyone knows, generally speaking, what the signs of COVID is. Number one is being fever. Everyone will be asked to be screened at home before they're sending their child in for temperature. Any temperature greater than 100.0 Fahrenheit would be considered a fever, even though technically, medically speaking, we use 100.4. We're using 100 as a guideline now because it's close enough and beyond normal enough to say that's an abnormal number. So 100 fever, if they have chills, as if they feel like they have a fever, is considered a symptom. A new cough, let's say someone has a chronic cough from allergies or a tick of some sort, that wouldn't be considered a new symptom, but a new cough that they never had before, shortness of breath or difficulty breathing, and any new loss of taste or smell. Some people already have issues with that in the past, so we're not worried about things that have been established chronically. But if there's a new problem, we definitely want to know about that. Keep your child at home, call the school nurse, let us know what's going on. We could document the symptom to include congestion, sore throat, headache, fatigue. There's a slew of symptoms, rash, muscle aches, diarrhea, that the nurse will want to document. Now, if we find that someone has a symptom in the school, they will go to the school nurse immediately, be isolated, and then you'll be asked to be picked up. That child will be asked to be picked up from the school directly. We do have some protocols that are outlined by the New York State Department of Health that if there is a COVID positive symptom, but no exposure, they've never, had anybody in the family that have COVID-19, they haven't traveled to a place that would be positive, or no one has told them that there was a COVID, they didn't know that there was a COVID positive exposure, then they would be evaluated by their provider and likely get a COVID test. So if there's any respiratory symptom, we will require a COVID test to go back if it's negative and make sure those symptoms have gotten better. Now, if you don't have a COVID test, you can decide to keep your child home for at least 10 days from that onset of that symptom. And then they can return to school with that date documented as long as they don't have a fever within the last 3 days. So that will be outlined, but that's right now the going recommendation from the Department of Health. And again, these things are ever changing and evolving as things go on, so they could change.
Well, speaking of those changes, tests seem to be more available now than, let's say, they were in the spring. And you mentioned 10 days, versus a lot of it's seemed to be 14 days, so there's even changes in some of that. Kind of.
That's correct. We definitely want someone who's been exposed to a known positive patient to be quarantined for 14 days, because they could be asymptomatic for several days before they become symptomatic. We don't know exactly when that patient could have been infected by that COVID positive exposure. So to be safe, the quarantine time is still 14 days.
Okay.
But from the time you're symptomatic, someone is actually sick, and then they recover, then that's 10 days. But that has recently changed. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I get a curveball tomorrow. We never know, right, on these things. And the things that we've been hearing a lot, wear a mask at all times. Some exceptions. Maybe you can go over some of those exceptions for us.
So we definitely want everybody to be comfortable with masks. I think you had asked about how to prepare families to bring their kids back to school. So we definitely want parents to have masks. I know Mid Lakes will provide masks as well, but if you have your own, I would say at least a few handful of masks per child in case one gets dropped on the floor, it gets dirty, then they can have an extra one in their bag to switch it out and then be able to wash their masks periodically. We do want high quality masks. We don't want anything that's very stretchy or very loose, like a mesh-like material. If you're going to make your own mask, I do want it to be a tight cotton woven material, like quilting material. If not 2 layers, then 3 with a like a non-woven interfacing. Or you can also buy non-surgical masks, surgical masks that are disposable, and then reuse them periodically. You would use one, let it sit for 5 days, and reuse it if it's still clean. So we definitely want children to be comfortable wearing masks. I think having them wear them for a few minutes a day and increase it to a few hours, have them wear a mask while they're watching a movie or on a video game or a tablet really does help, because they have a distracting a device that kind of gets them to get used to that mask around their face. They really do have to wear the mask around their nose, cover around their cheeks and their mouth. So there are some studies that show gaiter sleeve-like masks that go over the neck is not the best. At this point, I think it will depend on the school if we decide not to allow that. But if we can get the masks over their nose reliably, then that would be the best mask possible. That's something that they're comfortable wearing.
Great. You actually answered 3 questions I had in that one response. Since we're on masks, though, I want to go over to my friend Mr. Bay Rossi here at the high school, because maybe he can share some details on a mask fundraiser that I hear.
I forgot to bring my modeling gear with me. So we have purchased Mid Lakes masks, and the senior class will be selling masks. There you go. That's it. We'll be selling Mid Lakes masks to the community, to parents, to anybody that wishes to purchase them. We do have children's size and adult size, and all the proceeds will go to the senior class. Normally, the senior class does a magazine fundraiser at the beginning of the year. Obviously, we're not able to do that, so we're trying to figure out ways that we can help them.
So the mask, they're similar to the one that I have. Do they have like even a little insert here we can add?
Yep, it comes with a filter that you can put in a pocket that's at the front of the mask.
Yeah. I mean, they're pretty thick, you know, so it's like when you're, I have a mask I bought from MLB.com, not to go too far into masks, and it's a little more flimsy. I love the team on here, but the Mid Lakes mask is definitely, it feels like it provides more, it feels like there's more to it than that one. So there's a big difference, talking about gaiters and the type of mask that you can get, and there's all sorts of masks that are appearing. So I think, even as I have started to look and try to find masks, and some have the strap go behind, some behind the ears. It's almost like a piece of, like a coat. You're trying to find the best fit in the feel for you. Particularly if you wear glasses as well. So we talked a little bit about masks. Also, I know a lot. Big thing is social distancing. In terms of being on the bus, being in a classroom, being in the hallway, 6 feet is sort of like the marker. But there's also some differences in that as well too. And maybe Dr. Fryer, you might be able to speak on it, or Mr. Lombardi about. I know PE, and there's some activities where it will be even more than 6 feet for social distancing purposes.
I do believe that if there's going to be an exertional, like singing or loud talking, you do want to be 12 feet apart. I'll have Mr. Sickles talk about PE because I'm not familiar with what they're doing ahead of time, but the teacher, if they're going to be talking loudly, then they should be 12 feet apart from the students. If they're sitting quietly and their desks are 6 feet apart from each other and they're not moving and they're just sitting and doing schoolwork, then they can, as far as I believe, take off their mask and take a mask break. Now, if they're going to be moving around or, asking, lots of questions, or the teacher needs to come close to answer a question, then obviously the mask should come back on. But if they're doing some math problems, or they have exercise to do, then the students can take them off as long as they're 6 feet apart.
Yeah, and looking through the guidance, provided by State Department of Health and CDC, there's some circumstances where you shouldn't wear masks, and obviously, I know one of them is if it impairs your health in any way. Are there other situations where we should not wear a mask?
So yeah, there are going to be some exceptions to some students in particular who have difficulty with breathing. They have neurodegenerative problems, or they have a cardiac or respiratory problem that will the mask will interfere with them breathing. So their physician does need to give them a mask exemption letter and submit that to our nurse. There also may be some behavioral or developmental issues that they might have an exception as well. So sometimes there are some students that just can't wear masks because they're autistic and they just don't understand what it means. But overall, I think the majority will be able to wear a mask. It does take some practice, and it also, like you said, finding the right fit with the mask will help as well.
And this is a question from Facebook, face shields worn in conjunction but not on their own?
Unfortunately, the New York State Department of Health does not allow face shields to be used instead of masks. Definitely could be used in conjunction. So if there is a exception where a student can't wear a mask, then I would highly recommend wearing a face shield.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. What other?
If I could just chime in on that,
Yeah.
actually, Dr. Mendoza, who's the doctor on the Finger Lakes Regional Reopening Task Force, recently put out a memo regarding students who are medically exempt from wearing a face covering, strongly encouraging that schools have them wear the face shield so that there's some barrier if they can't tolerate the mask. And then there's some other guidelines for staff members who are interacting with those students, and we'll be providing that information to our staff.
Yeah. before we move on to another topic, the masks, the school will have some masks available for staff and students.
Yeah, so we will provide masks for all staff members, any personal protective equipment that's specific to their job responsibilities. And then the primary responsibility for students' masks is the family, but we will have disposable masks in all locations, buses, classrooms, entrances to buildings, should a student not have one, or should it break or become soiled during the day. So one of our great endeavors right now is acquiring all sorts of PPE, so that we're well equipped through all the different stages of bringing students on campus.
Okay. Dr. Fryer, before we kind of move a little bit off of health and safety for now and masks and social distancing and stuff, is there anything else, any other messages that you want to share with families, or any pieces, tips of advice that you kind of want to share with them regarding, like, just trying to follow protocols and be as safe as possible?
So generally speaking, the mask is really out there to protect each other. So if we all wear a mask, and then if there's one person who cannot wear it, as long as the majority of us are wearing masks, then really that we will protect them for the person who cannot wear a mask. So it really is going to be a joint effort on everybody's part. And my office wear a mask every day. All of our nurses wear a mask every day. We take breaks appropriately. Obviously, one of the times you take a break is when you're eating. So that will be another time where the kids can be free to take off their masks as long as they're eating and socially distanced apart. I'm sure there's a protocol for that as well at the school. And we've been doing this since March safely. Our numbers are very low, so as long as we continue to do that, I really feel like we can have a safe opening. Yeah.
Okay, great. I mean, that's what we want to hear. We want to be safe and bring everybody on board at the same time. Before we get too much further, Mr. Lombardi, I know we were going to try to mention this last night, but the number of changes going around on our facilities in our school buildings to prepare to have students and staff back on campus. And one change that's being made is drinking water fountains. Can you tell us a little bit about that change and sort of recommendations that the district might have for parents in terms of just getting a sip of water at school?
Yeah, I mean, we're in the process of changing over some of our drinking fountains with some of the touchless bottle filling stations. So it'd be highly recommended if, kids could bring in their own water bottles to use, so that reduce down on some of those shared areas. Talking about desks and things like that, we've moved desks into the cafeterias. They've just started, as far as the high school goes, once we can come back in person in the high school, they have been working to put desks in there to see how many kids that we can social distance apart in the cafeteria. So when lunches are available, that they can take those mask breaks and still stay safe and healthy at the same time. So that's some of the stuff that we've been doing. And again, the custodian staff's been going through and making sure that each desk in the classroom are 6 feet apart. I know we've mentioned before that it is tougher to get anywhere from about 8 to maybe 10 or 11 desks in the elementary building. And then at the high school, some of those rooms are a little bit bigger. So maybe we're on the 12 or 13 kids per class up there in your traditional classroom. So we are going to have to look at different options and different spaces as well to try to make sure that we can keep everybody safe and everybody's social distance while they are in school. And
Have you, being the AD, have you heard about any updates relating to fall athletics or sports or anything like that? I know we're on pause for a little while here.
yeah, I mean, as of right now, no high school athletics are allowed. But today, the governor did say that he's going to make a decision within a week and kind of go through some guidance and make a decision as far as what the fall might look like for athletics. So keeping our fingers crossed that hopefully it's good news.
Yeah, definitely keeping the fingers crossed. I'm gonna jump down a little bit, at least on my screen. Mr. Moyer, you're among the top of my heart, but on my screen, you're down on the lower end. I kind of was in the elementary school a little bit today with the facilities crew. Mr. Lombardi just mentioned, some of the changes, the kind of jigsaw puzzle that's happening at the secondaries high school. Can you tell us a little bit about the elementary school and the just kind of what's happening there and some of the I don't want you to go too far into all the committees, but a general overview, maybe even talk about rivals or something like that.
Yep. So as we worked through this process, we started very large, at a very broad view of the process. And as we've gotten closer since we put together the plan and the plan's been posted, we've started to break out into subcommittees with different stakeholder groups and pull in those different voices. And one of those groups happens to be totally focused on arrival, dismissal, and transportation. And that is a big lift, I guess, for lack of any other way to say it. And I said the other day at our Zoom meeting, our town hall, I felt giddy practically after the last meeting. And since then, we've done a lot more work, and we've gotten to the point where we have written out on bulleted lists our whole entire arrival procedure. So at this point, we feel very strongly that we've come up with a solid plan. It begins at the normal time that our normal arrival would have been able to begin. It will take a bit longer to get our kids into school, whether they're being bused in or dropped off by parents. And we've come up with a very detailed plan, working with Deputy Holland as well, on how we're going to do that safely and efficiently and get our kids into the building daily.
And so let's just talk about arrival. What details can you share with us now, or when will we might families might hearing a little bit more about those plans?
Well, I have another meeting tomorrow, but I can share some of it. So if you're thinking about the busing, we're not going to have. It's hard for me to picture anything but the normal. A normal arrival where I have a bus coming in and it's like a clown car. They just keep coming off of the bus sometimes. And, that's not going to be the case. After working with Mrs. Rowe, our transportation director, who's doing an awesome job, she's telling me, you might have 10, 15, at the most 22 students. And that's when we start adding grades, more than likely, coming off of a school bus. So we're going to have a staff member present, many staff members present at the buses. We are going to have it all color coded. Every grade level that's coming on the campus has a color. We're going to have color coded arrows inside the building that are very close to completion through staff work, volunteer work in many cases. Coming into the building, and we're going to use every parent. And one of the reasons our mailing, unfortunately, hasn't been able to be sent yet is every parent, kindergarten, UPK, to third grade, is going to get a bus tag. So color-coded bus tag. So when the students get off the bus, we know exactly what grade they are, which staff member they're going to go to. The staff member will know exactly the route they're going to take to the classroom after we enter the building through the kiosk, which I know we haven't talked about yet, but I don't know if that's something we want to get into at this point, and direct them to their classrooms. And we're looking at a staff member with no more than 5 students with them as we do that process. So there's going to be a lot of staff assigned. The parent drop-off loop, many people know that's one of our big ticket items on the capital project. Unfortunately, the capital project hasn't taken place yet, and we're going to have a large number of parents dropping off students. So we have a plan in place where we're going to have a staff member present, or multiple staff members down toward the one-room schoolhouse, counting the number of cars that have come into the bus loop. No buses will be coming in that way. All the buses will be routed through the bus garage, so there will be no crossover of buses. Been working with the MEC staff as well to make that happen with our MEC busing. So now we're not going to have any crossover of buses stuck in a parent drop-off line. Cars will come up to the parent drop-off loop where they'll be met by greeters. The greeter will work with the parent, get the child out of the car. We'll again have escorts present by grade level, color coordinated, and they will escort no more than 5 children into the building at that point through the main entrance. Neglected to say that all buses will go through door A. All buses students will go through door A. All drop-offs by parents will come through the main foyer, and then again follow the same process, take them to their classrooms, and that person will go back out and start the whole process over again. So is that detailed enough for you?
Pretty much.
Todd, if I could just take an opportunity to just use that as an example to make a larger point. I know there have been a lot of questions that we certainly understand about why we aren't starting the year with more grade levels, more students in the hybrid model. And we certainly, as I've said many times, understand the impact and the burden that our conservative approach is putting on families. And we're motivated to resolve that as quickly as we can by bringing more grade levels on. But as soon as we safely can, and as Mr. Moyer describes that process and all the moving parts involved in that, and the time that it's going to take, and the staff that it's going to take to just pull off that one procedure, not to mention the additional cleaning. And the kiosks that he mentioned are going to be temperature taking stations at the main entrances that are going to require staff and time. So, we're starting, and as I've talked about, and in my PowerPoint to the board on Monday, and I shared some of those slides yesterday at our town hall meeting, and that PowerPoint's available on the website as well. I said this is a health and safety endeavor first. Okay, this is a public health crisis, and we're focusing on the health and safety, and we're taking a cautious approach because we don't know how much time it's going to take to perform these procedures or exactly how much staff it's going to take. So we're starting with UPK through 3. And if that goes very well and everybody's cooperative and we're confident that those procedures, all of our procedures are going smoothly, then we'll assess when we can safely, through time, space, and staffing, bring another grade level on. So that was just a great setup. Just, that one procedure, that's just getting kids onto campus and into the buildings. That gets us to about 9:15 in the morning. And then we have many other procedures and other responsibilities throughout the day.
Mr. Sickles, if I want to add one more thing this is a public exercise in public relations that we're doing here as well. One of the things that the subcommittee has talked about each time we've met is we've lost so much. So much of what we do is being lost through this, the little pieces that mean so much in our children and sending them to school. We are actually working on a procedure right now and we're going to assign staff to this the first week to allow parents that opening day photograph of their children, whether they are getting out of a car. And these are our kindergartners that we're talking about, our UPK students. It's their first day. I have pictures of my children going to the bus on the first day, getting off the bus at school the first day. So this committee is also working on that, and I think it's important to put that in there. And we're also looking at a procedure to somehow work it out that we create an isolated area for parents to also see their child get off the bus for the first time. And we're working out those details with Mr. Restek on how we can pull that off in a safe manner for everybody involved. But we recognize how much is being lost, and we thought this was something we could maybe work out to give back to our families.
So, Matt, I just want to press you because I always press you on the same point because
We love to do that, Todd.
it's the point. Well, it's the point that parents want to know, right? It's all about the timeline and
Yes.
the criteria that will be used. So we're waiting for everybody to be safe. Can you go over any more of the criteria that you're going to use to kind of make sure that hey, it's time. This is a
Right.
good
So, on that PowerPoint presentation that you can go to, maybe the 5th or 6th slide, is titled Constraints. And these are the barriers that we have to overcome and manage throughout the reopening process, but throughout the school year. And they are space, which is created by the social distancing requirements. Mr. Lombardi talked about, 8 to 10 students fitting in an elementary classroom. We also with space issues, we're trying to limit transitions and not have students move from room to room, but rather have staff come to them. That adds time, so and procedures eat up time. And we need to maximize instructional time as well. And then there's staffing. Everybody wants to know, and I get it. I 100% understand why aren't we doing this parallel with a few grade levels at the secondary level? Why aren't we starting UPK through 3 and 7 through 9? Because we're going to be drawing staff, custodial staff, nursing staff, clerical staff, all sorts of non-instructional personnel from the secondary building down to the elementary level to help smooth out these procedures, get them working well and safely. Then we'll be watching that and assessing that, and then deciding through observation and collecting data, consulting and gathering feedback, when is it safe? When do we have enough staff primarily to support another grade level coming back? And I know you're going to push me again and again and again, and everybody wants a number of days, a number of weeks. When is it going to happen? And I'm not going to put a number on it. And I'm not even going to give an example of a number, because then that example becomes the number that everybody starts to use and expect. We are highly motivated to get our kids back on campus as much as possible, as quickly as possible, but in a safe manner. So I'm hoping that everything goes smoothly. I'm hoping that the plans that we're designing and have designed work as we expect them to and hope that they will. But we also need cooperation from families and students. The things that Dr. Fryer talked about in terms of preparing students for what to expect, getting them used to wearing masks, families cooperating with us by taking temperatures in the morning and reporting that through the online tool that will be selected and shared as soon as possible. All these things are going to help us bring more kids back. But if we run into obstacles and our progress is impeded because we're having trouble getting kids to wear masks, or we're having to spend more time taking temperatures at arrival because families aren't, those are the things that are going to slow down the process. And I think Dr. Fryer made a comment, this is a community effort. This is a collaborative effort. And, we are a community, and as Mr. Bay Rossi has mentioned in previous town halls, we often refer to the Mid-Lakes family. And that's how this has to work, is we have to treat each other as family and take care of each other. And, Mr. Moyer talked about giving back those, making sure those memories are there for UPK and kindergarten students incoming. Well, we want to create those same memories for rising 7th graders and rising freshmen and our seniors. There are memories and milestones at every grade level. We value and cherish the memories that we're able to give our students. Going to school is about learning, but it's learning in a lot of ways, and it's experiential. Being here is important, and we want to get our students back here. It's very emotional for all of us, and I'll probably, if I don't stop now, I'll probably get emotional. But we're trying. But we have to keep people safe first.
Yeah, those experiences are the reason why I'm here. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've seen a kid win a sectional championship or go up and hug a teacher, or just kind of been supported by their classmates, or done something well. It's awesome to see, and I love bringing those stories to everybody. Mr. Moore, I'm going to jump back to you for a little bit because there's a couple of follow-up questions. I know that the kindergarten teachers are planning sort of a meet and greet. Do we know anything about UPK? The question was asked specifically about UPK or maybe some of the other grades.
I know that after working with our children's place staff. They're going to try to mirror what our kindergarten teachers are doing, which is essentially, and I can't speak for the OCP staff, but I know the conversation was happening because they heard what we were doing. And what our kindergarten teachers have done is created a schedule. They'll be communicating out once, to be honest, they don't know 100% what their class lists are, because that's something we've been trying to balance between, remote learning and in-person learning through the hybrid model. So we've been, like Mr. Sickles has said a number of times, we don't want to give bad information. We want to give correct information the first time we give it. So unfortunately, that has delayed some of that communication. But once the teachers have those lists, they'll be communicating directly with parents. It's going to, if you want to visualize parent-teacher conferences that way, but it's going to be a very short window where the child can come into the school, just that parent and that child at the time, find their classroom, meet their teacher, proper social distancing, masks, get a visual of what the classroom looks like under this set of regulations, kind of show the child those pieces. And we're working and also getting a school bus. We usually do a bus ride of some sort. We're not going to be taking out one child at a time around on a bus ride. Unfortunately, that's just not reasonable to do. But having a bus there to show students a bus, if they have never been on a school bus before, is a reasonable thing to do.
Yeah,
So, go ahead.
Yeah, my girls, before they started school, they got to go on the bus and do a little tour, and they absolutely loved it. It's just like this new experience and a build up to coming to school. They were super excited for. You kind of talked a little bit about timelines. I think there's a bunch of questions that I'm receiving or seeing from family members. Cohorts and school supply lists. Can you talk about those two for us?
I happen to, on my other device that's in front of me, have all the school supply lists available in front of me right now, which I believe are also available through the website as well. But I have them here, and I'm going to start with that, and I'm going to just read directly off of the school supply list real quick. This is on every grade levels, K through 6 supply list. With the help of the Clifton Springs Rotary, the parent-teacher organization, and other donations, we are able to make available to each student the supplies listed above. However, if you would like to purchase your student supplies, that is also acceptable. But as these lists go, if you look at a kindergarten list, everything on the list is being provided generously through our Rotary Club, as well as donations through PTO and other generous groups.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to read every list, but everything that was on the list that we could do, we are doing, and it varies. And we have a plan to distribute all those materials to our full remote learners. Somehow we're looking at, I know I don't want to nail myself down, but we're looking as early as we can to that first week of school to do a material pickup, at least for supplies, if not other materials.
Yeah, Rotary is great. I mean, they've been helping out for a number of years. That information is close to being posted on the website. It's there. It just need to make sure it's all set and looks perfect for families. But their generosity, PTO, Mr. Sickles, perhaps you can, before we come back to you, Chris, talk a little bit about what PTO is doing. They stepped up for a sizable, nice donation.
Yeah, I mean, the PTO has done so much. Their most recent endeavor is they've made a donation of nearly $1,400 worth of thermometers, so that we can distribute thermometers to families that don't have one already. Again, helping us engage with our families and put our families in a position to help us and take part in this community lift. To make sure that temperatures are checked in the morning before students get on the bus or come to school. So really generous. And the PTO has been supporting us through so many things, but even going back to the spring, making the yard signs available to our seniors. we're just so fortunate to have so many community organizations. The Rotary Club and the PTO are just two examples, but it's that sort of civic mindedness and community commitment that's really going to be a key to making all this work. And we look forward to building out more partnerships as we go.
Gotcha.
That's been a lot of hard work on the part of many people, ranging from Mrs. Borges, the secretary, working with, and all the secretaries, kind of collecting lists, what can be on the list, to Mr. Reefstack, what was on the list that we shouldn't have had on the list. There's a lot of things in there, and it took a lot of people's input to make this type of thing happen.
Yeah, undoubtedly. Cohorts, do you expect
cohorts? We are, at the end of today, before we walked out of the building, the last thing that was said between myself and Mrs. Benzer, assistant principal, was the cohorts are ready. She feels strongly that the lists look good. She's been working diligently to try to balance all those lists for us. Too many chefs spoil the broth in those cases, so she's been really focused on that, getting it just right. Now we have to go through that process. We need to communicate with transportation, make sure we have everybody that's being transported in a bus number. We need to make sure that we want to generate our bus tags in color coordinated. That can all get done in a fairly expeditious fashion. As soon as all that's done, we are going to be sending that information out, and we're looking at possible other ways to get some of that information out, working with Mr. Gowan. If there's some other methods we could use to communicate other than just the mailing, because some of the mail takes quite a while to get to its location. Within our community, it varies by days sometimes.
Yeah.
Could I just, Tom, before you move on, if I could just ask Chris and Frank to elaborate too and clarify the differences between our UPK through third grade cohorts, our 4th through 6th grade cohorts, and our 7th through 12th cohorts, because there may be differences in the timeline for announcing those and why that is, but what commonalities there will be as well.
So, I can start, Chris. I think that the first commonality, and probably the thing that parents and families are worried about the most, is families that have kids in multiple buildings. Kids that are in the elementary building or in the secondary building. One thing that one of the reasons it's taking us this time is because we are going to guarantee that those kids are on the same schedule. So if I have a secondary school kid, and they have a younger brother or sister that's in the elementary school, we want them to be coming into school on the same days and be home on the same days. And so you have that childcare if you need it. So it's a daunting task, because you're talking about looking at, in my building's case, 750 students. I have to coordinate, because what we're trying to do is split the classes in half. So I got to try to split the classes in half, but also coordinate with transportation, because their capability of transporting students has been reduced. So we have to try to coordinate between the two of us of how we cut our classes in half. And that's easier in the elementary school than it is in the secondary building, because it's not like my kids in the building all go to one class and they travel together to another class. You from class to class, you may have a different mix of students in every single class. So trying to balance that is difficult. So the timeline for that is, I talked to transportation for quite a while today on the phone. She is promising me that she will have the list to me by Friday sometime. But then we have to go through and input 750 students in there and try to balance. And try to balance across the board so that we can ensure that we're not over capacity in rooms. So it's I'm hoping by the end of next week we'll be able to send something home, but that's aggressive.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
You bring up a great point, and it's hard to see if you're not at school or in the committee meetings regularly, just how complex the puzzle is, right? And Matt, Sir Mr. Circles has brought up, there's a space requirement, there's the guidance requirements, there's the staffing requirements, there's all these other things that kind of impact it. And you come in, you look at a classroom that has only 7 or 8 desks. After seeing it full with kids, it's a stark difference, that you kind of don't want to see. I do want to, Frank, I want to go a couple questions with you. We received some on the Facebook feed. and in the emails. Chris talked about supply lists. Usually 7th and 8th grade we have them for. So are those coming together? Will we?
They are. That's the other thing that I know families are looking for is their summer mailing. Where's my summer mailing? That has all their information in it. As we complete these tasks, the secretaries have been putting all the mailings together, so they're ready to go. We're waiting for that final piece of the schedule because that's really the big thing that needs to go in there is the student schedule. So they will be out soon. And I know Todd, you and I had talked about giving you a copy so you can put it up on the website. I can do that in the morning. So that we can put the 7th and 8th grade supply list up there.
Yeah, and as soon as like we mentioned with the website earlier, midlakes.org, there's a reopening section families can go to. There's also reopening schools at midlakes.org email that families can ask the staff questions, the administrative team. Been trying to stay up on that as best as possible and responding to questions as they've come in. Do you want to talk a little, Frank, Mr. Ross, you want to talk a little bit about the scheduling, the block schedule, and kind of not only maybe, the 4 blocks that you're using, but how like on a Monday and Tuesday that might change a little bit.
So one of the pieces of guidance that the CDC and the state gave to us that we needed to reduce the number of transitions that kids have during the day. In the elementary school, that's a little bit easier. They're in one classroom. Specials can come to them. We can't do that at the secondary level. So in order for us to reduce the number of transitions that kids have during the day, we're going from our normal 8-period schedule down to a block schedule. So there'll be 4 blocks every day. And what we had to do is we had to take our 8-period schedule and slide it into a block schedule. So once we get to the hybrid, the way it will look is just like in the elementary school, there'll be 2 cohorts. There'll be we're calling them black and blue for our Mid-Lakes colors. So one cohort will come in on Monday, Tuesday, and be remote on Wednesday. Then the second cohort will be remote on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and come in Thursday and Friday. And they will follow a block schedule. But essentially what that block schedule is our traditional 8-period schedule, split in half, but not split in half numerically. So we didn't take periods 1, 2, 3, 4 and put them on Monday, and 5, 6, 7, 8 and put them on Tuesday, because we had to accommodate our kids to go to FLTCC. To try to do that, they would be missing too much class time. So we had to adjust the times. I actually have a letter prepared to send out to go in the packet that explains explicitly how the block schedule works. It's got copies of the times. It has copies of what the schedule looks like, and then it verbally tells them exactly what happens. The other piece for the secondary building is we run on a day rotation. We have an A-B day rotation. In order for us to make that work, because we have to think ahead. So at some point, we're going to start bringing kids back into the secondary school. And we're not going to do that all at once. It's not like we're going to say, okay, 7 through 12 is all coming back hybrid at once. As we build our capacity, we'll bring grades on. So we'll have some kids that are on the hybrid model, just like in the elementary school, and some that are totally virtual. So to make that work so that we don't have kids on different schedules when we're making that transition, instead of doing an A-B day rotation by day, we're doing it by week. So we'll have an A week, and the next week will be a B week. That way it stays consistent for the kids, and we can meet all the needs.
Great. Can you elaborate a little bit on what remote learning will look like? Maybe, I don't know, take a class in English, take any class you want, and just provide some color around that.
Sure. And I know, this is the one thing I will say is that I hope everybody understands that this is new for everybody. This is a challenging time for everybody. Teachers didn't go into education to teach virtually. They like having kids in front of them. They're there because they like kids. And it's we had a staff meeting today virtually, and it's odd. It's odd to do it that way. So we're all very disappointed that we're not going to have those kids in front of us right away. So I would say that I don't expect, in our block schedule, classes are now 88 minutes long. So I don't expect that the teachers are going to Zoom call with kids for 88 minutes. That's not going to. I also can't expect that a student is going to sit in front of a screen for 6.5 hours a day. That can't happen. The kids won't engage that long sitting there. So it will vary. each teacher teaches in their own way. But for example, it may be that, the teachers, the other piece of this is we're going to follow the block schedule. So kids will log in, or kids will engage with their teacher during their scheduled class time. So if you have a first period class, you will engage with your teacher at 7:30 when you're supposed to. And it may be that the teacher, maybe they give direct instruction for 20 minutes. And in Zoom, you have the ability to have breakout rooms. Maybe they put the kids into breakout rooms, or maybe they give them an assignment where they're going to go off and do the assignment. And maybe they'll come back 30 or 40 minutes later with the assignment, and they'll look at the assignment together. That's one example. Another example is a teacher could film themselves. It's called a flipped classroom. A teacher could film the lesson. The homework is for the students to watch that lesson. And then when they're in class, the teacher can work through that with them and give them the guidance and reteach and reinforce what was in the lesson. So those are just a couple of examples of the way it could look. But our teachers are creative, and they love kids. And we're fully aware that we need to be better than we were in the spring. The spring was sudden. The spring we just we have time to plan now. So we're very well aware that we need to do a better job in engaging our students in the educational process.
Yeah.
And there's a committee dedicated specifically right now just to the teaching and learning piece and the remote instruction. In fact, I think documents for K3, 4, 6, and 7, 12 went up on the website today that sort of talk about expectations for remote learning and sort of guidelines. So again, we encourage our parents and students to go to the website and check those resources. But our staff is so engaged in the process.
Michelle Robinette has done just an outstanding job leading those pieces and putting those documents together and having them ready. I didn't mean to interrupt. I apologize, but I thought it was an appropriate time. That she's just been absolutely phenomenal on preparing all those materials for us as principals and getting them posted for everybody to see.
And for anybody on the panel, excluding maybe you, Dr. Fryer, because we haven't seen you on campus much, but for those that interact with our staff, how are they doing? I know I've seen some of them kind of helping with their room prep. I see Mr. Stickle raises his hand.
Well, I had a couple experiences today, and my office is located in the elementary school, and since those teachers at UPK through 3 are coming back with students in person sooner, they're coming in. They've been coming in for about a week now to thin out their rooms, to get a lot of their belongings or quote unquote unnecessary materials, which had to redefine what that means. But they've been in to make room so that we can social distance and try to cut down on communal supplies, things like that. And I gotta tell you, there's anxiety, there's stress that we've all been dealing with since March. They're no different. Everybody is, anxious about this return, but they're excited. I ran into a teacher in the hallway today, and she had just come from her room, and her through her mask, her eyes were smiling, and she was excited. And she goes, it's okay. I didn't know what my room would look like, but the carpet's not there, and the desks are apart, but it's going to work. And I'm just so excited to have kids in front of me again. And that's the mindset. And even as you go right up through, K through 12, our teachers are going to be pushing us too to get kids back on campus. I know parents are afraid that we're going to, stall and that we don't want kids back, and nothing could be further from the truth. Health and safety, again, is going to drive the pace, but our staff want kids back. And they're already working so hard, but they're going to continue to work hard in every job description to make that happen as quickly as possible.
You mentioned the teachers. We talk a little bit about the teachers. The union has also seemed to be pretty supportive of what, other districts, we're not seeing that.
We have a number of collective bargaining units that represent different job descriptions. And again, they have been collaborative since the day we closed in March. and even before, as we first started to wrap our heads around COVID-19, and even, that short period of time where we were engaging in, precautions in person, and then very quickly that became everybody's going home. I want to give all of our bargaining units the proper due, because they have been cooperative, supportive, flexible. They understand that this is going to be different, and that we all have to think differently about what school's going to be like. But if you think about things we've pulled off, from feeding, 140,000 meals were delivered between March 20th and June 30th. And that was through the collaboration. That was our Employees Association, which is our transportation, food service, and facility staff. Magnificent. Aided by volunteers from our Aides and Secretaries Association and our Faculty Association. And then each of these units have worked with us. We've had open communication. And again, that's what gives me great confidence in this whole process, is that we have a staff who's really ready to link arms and make this happen.
That's true. And I didn't mean to bring up the teachers solely at the exclusion of other units, but I'm glad you kind of mentioned everybody. One thing that I did want to mention tonight on campus is the National Elementary Honor School Society Luminary event. Mr. Moyer, I see you're shaking your head a little bit. Just want to touch briefly on that. Let's give them a plug about what's going on and what they're doing.
Well, they always do multiple activities, and Mrs. Altman and Mrs. Bratley, we know, just have boundless amounts of energy, and they've been trying to do creative things for the Relay for Life and all these other pieces. So tonight there's a luminary event, practicing social distancing in the elementary school bus loop, and we encourage everybody, if you're free and you're bored and you want to get out and see something beautiful, drive out to the elementary school, and it's all just drive through. And the students will be there. Our Honor Society students will be there. They've been working on this throughout the week, coming in, picking up their bags. And if you have time, it would be a wonderful event to go support.
Yeah, that's 8 to 9 o'clock tonight at the elementary school. So we talked a little bit, review briefly, the UPK through third graders are going to, be in a in-person remote learning situation to start the school year on September 4th, grades 4 through 12.
September 14th.
September, what did I say, 12th?
No, you said the 4th.
Oh yeah, I don't think anybody wants to come on the 4th. The 14th. The grades 4 through 12 will start in a remote instruction situation. The students that are going to the career and technical education students that are going to the BOCES campus in Stanley, Flint, they're going to start on the 9th. And if they need transportation, the district will help provide it. But those students that can drive will be allowed to drive there. So you need this, and that starts early, earlier than the 14th. So families should know about that specific start date, and if they need transportation to get their requests in. We haven't really talked much about the NL and the special education situation. So Tammy, could you provide a little bit of an overview of the what's going on with the special education students, and how you still need to hear from families?
Sure. One of the things that the special education department, CSE office, has been working on with guidance from the principals as well, is that our K-12 students who are in our special classes, so our 12-1-1 and 15-1-1 special classes across the district, they will be on campus Monday, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And Wednesdays will be remote. So those students in those programs will be on campus. And I know I've looked through some of the requests from parents, and there are some requests for remote instruction, and those students will fall into the remote instruction if they are requested by parents to do so. But our co-taught or our consultant teacher direct programs and our resource programs across the district. Of course, the K-3 population will be on campus in the hybrid model, but the students 4 through 12, we are taking requests from parents. And I've talked to about 130 families, or about 130 students thus far, either through email or by phone call. And that's just been in the last week and a half, to really kind of set up if they feel their child needs some on-campus time. And what I mean by on-campus time would be they still are in that remote service 4 through 12, but we're going to try and bring them in per parent request on Wednesdays, either through a coordinated effort with the bus garage or a parent drop-off for some additional in-person instruction by the special education staff. And when I say the special education staff, I'm not only meaning the special education teachers who have that caseload, but within that department, you have counselors, you have social workers, you have OTs, PTs, speech therapists, all of those related staffs. We are working hard to come up with a schedule, much like the building principals are, with their Monday, Tuesday group and their Thursday, Friday group. We're taking that information and really trying to build those individual schedules for the students. And it is a daunting task, but I know it's important to get kids on campus as much as we can. And so we're trying our hardest to take those parent requests for those students in those programs. And as far as E&L, the English as a new language learners, those learners will be on campus through a similar type schedule, about 2 days a week, I believe.
Mhm.
Matt, let's circle back with you for a little bit. What do you, the first week of teachers, they start report, I mean, in all honesty, they've already started reporting, but, September 8th is a big day. Can you tell us a little bit about that week and how that'll be used to prepare, to learn from what happened in the spring and launch the staff forward?
Absolutely. So, we had already planned to start the school year off with 2 superintendent's conference days. One of them was actually going to be before Labor Day, but we pushed that back to give us more time to prepare, to be ready for them. So again, we've rearranged the schedule so that they have the 4 days, Tuesday through Friday, the 8th through 11th of September, because we have to combine the normal preparation and trainings that teachers are required to do each year with the new ones that are resulting from the COVID-19 guidance. So, every year there's a slew of state and federal requirements, just human resources requirements, trainings that teachers have to complete, some of which can be done online but are incorporated into those conference days. Some are provided in person. And now we need to provide additional trainings, primarily related to identifying symptoms of COVID-19 in students and in anyone they encounter during the day, and what they're to do about that if they were to identify symptoms, how to refer them to the school nurse, so on. They also need to be trained in how to provide instruction to students regarding proper hand washing and hand hygiene and respiratory hygiene, and follow up in those areas with Dr. Fryer too. She may have some advice in those areas, but we're going to be probably picking her brain on the content for those trainings. We also need to provide training and planning time to our teachers to prepare for the combination of in-person and remote instruction. We have our students, our teachers for grades 4 through 12 are going to start 100% remote, but they need to be prepared for students to come back in the hybrid model. Our UPK through 3rd grade teachers are going to start in a hybrid model, And the whole, and again, we have a committee working on, the structure for this and filling in the details, but the mindset and the goal is to have students at home using technology to connect live with the in-person classroom. That's going to take a lot of coordination. That's going to take training in technology, how to use instructional technology effectively, and just how to structure activities differently. We're also going to lean into, for consistency for students and parents' sake, based on feedback that we receive through surveys, we're going to designate one learning platform, technology learning platform, K-6, that's going to be Seesaw, and one platform for 7 through 12, that's going to be Schoology. And we have teachers with varying degrees of experience with those tools. We have some at both levels, either level, who've been using them extensively for quite some time. And then we have others who maybe just dabbled in it a little bit for the first time in the spring, but need to become more proficient. So those 4 days, we felt very strongly about restructuring the schedule, because setting our students up for success begins with setting our teachers and our staff up for success. So we want to make sure that everybody's well trained, well prepared, so that we can then support our students procedurally, health and safety wise, but then also educationally and instructionally.
Great. I kind of want to go around for the whole group, and just sort of one general final question. We're a little bit after 7 here. I think a question that has come up in various forms from parents, it kind of touches on remote instruction and engagement. And I guess the question is, what advice do you have for parents to make sure that their students are engaged in remote instruction? And Mr. Sickles, I like putting you on the hot spot first, so I'll let you answer that question. What advice do you have for making sure that families can start preparing to have their students engaged in remote instruction?
The great challenge that we face in this area is balancing structure and predictability with flexibility and accommodation. And those can be sometimes counter to each other. We know, our families have said we need more structure, we need more consistency, we need to know when our students are supposed to be doing X, Y, and Z, and we can't be managing all these different tools. We need to be able to lean into a few things. So, we need to provide that structure and narrow the lane a little bit to support families. But then at the same time, we need to understand and always remember, and this has always been true, a one-size-fits-all approach has never worked. And it's not what has made Mid Lakes. We've always prided ourselves on adapting and supporting individual student needs. And we need to continue to do that. Now, because in the remote model, we have many more classrooms, meaning homes, than we typically do. And I know that puts a burden on families, and it won't always be the family or parents who are there supporting it. They're all working on arrangements, collaborating with each other. They're leaning on extended family and neighbors. And they're not always going to be able to do it when we are doing it. So we have to provide that flexibility, but we need families to reach out to us. And it's okay. And I know the message that everybody on this panel and all of our town halls, and I'm sure they're going to chime in, and I encourage them to echo this message, is call us. So many times as administrators, we'll get a call from a parent who said, I was going to call a few weeks ago, but I didn't want to bother you. We hear lead-ins like that all the time. You are not bothering us. You are advocating for your child. We know that's your job as a parent. We respect it and we rely on it. And we want you to reach out to us. Reach out to the teacher. Reach out to the principals, the assistant principals, the directors. and communicate to us, this isn't working for my family, for my child. We need an accommodation. How can we work together? Is there a compromise? So the engagement is going to require that communication and collaboration. It's not just student engagement, it's engagement between the school and the family that's going to make this a success.
That response was a little bit more than I thought I was going to get there.
Well,
And I would say, I would echo, and Mr. Sickles is exactly right. That we've talked about, call us, let us know. Because one of the things I said the other day is, I'm, as an administrator, as the principal of the building, I'm used to be able to walk around the building and look in classrooms and see what's going on and stop in and check on teachers and check on kids. And I can't do that in a virtual environment. So if parents and students don't contact me, I have no way of knowing what is truly going on. The other piece that I would say for the secondary school, at least, is stay on top of Schoology. Work through Schoology with your child, because that's where all the information is going to come from. It's all the work and everything that the teachers are doing is going to come through Schoology. So if you want to know how the kids are doing, you want to see if they're engaged, check on Schoology. You can look at grades on School Tool to see how they're doing.
Okay.
and we will make sure that there are online tutorials and resources for parents and families on how to navigate Schoology, how to navigate Seesaw, because I'm sure people hear that and they're like, "But I don't know Schoology," and I don't. We're going to have the support there for you so that you can use those.
Yeah, in reference to those resources, I mean, if parents go on the website and they look at the parent tab and go under that, they can find some information on Schoology and School Tool, and under staff tools, there's stuff on Seesaw as well. That parents can find some of that information. Also, can use the tech help at midlakes.org email if they run into connectivity or other technical IT type issues to find that. But the website is really a resource. I'm going to kick it over to you, Tammy Wood. Advice for parents and families to try to stay engaged or help keep their students engaged in a remote learning environment.
And I would say, the practice that Dr. Fryer had said with the face mask and things like that for any on-campus time is important to repeat. But in remote, I think parents need to know that it doesn't matter what grade level your child is at. They all thrive in some kind of structure scheduled to be in. So even if you're a working parent and you have a high schooler, they may need you to give that quick text message to them to say, "Hey, don't you have to be in your ELA Zoom at 9:10?" Those are things that I see with all the different kids that I see and hear, and the comments I've heard from parents. And thank you, parents, for reaching out to me. Those are the things. It's just really working through those situations with staff or with your kids to know that you expect them, you hold them accountable for their own learning in those remote situations, just as you would as if they were in the old type school that we had prior to March, right? So it's very important to have those expectations for your kids and work with the school staff to make sure it happens.
Yeah, I'm hearing two key things in that: communication and kind of parent check-ins. Quick check-ins just to see what's going on, or to talk about your day, or using a text message. Mr. Moyer, I see you shaking your head. I'll pose it to you. What advice do you have for families to try to make help them make sure that their children are engaged in learning?
One of the things that I thinking right along the same lines as Mrs. Wood. One of the things we heard in the forums we did with stakeholder groups throughout this, the summer, we met with parent stakeholder group that was a cross section from kindergarten to 12th grade and beyond. We had parents on that had graduates, and student groups from 6th graders all the way up to 12th graders. And the one thing they kept going back to was feedback. The parents want more feedback, the students want more feedback. And they talked about the lack of feedback in the spring, and that was due to the fact that we designed it so it was more relaxed because people shouldn't have been penalized for what was happening in the spring. But I think Mr. Bay Rossi said we know we're going to be doing much better with that. But if you're not getting the feedback that you're happy with, reach out to the teachers. If you're not getting, don't wait for 2 weeks. Say I haven't heard anything for 2 weeks. We're human beings, and sometimes things get missed. Sometimes messages get lost in the shuffle. Please, if you're not getting the feedback that you need or desire, please, let us know so we can get on top of that right away, because that's where the growth's going to be. Provide getting that feedback from your instructional leaders, from your principals, to help your students at home through those conversations that Mrs. Wood talked about.
Great. Mr. Lombardi, any advice for parents?
Basically, like, it's tough sometimes when you're getting stuff together. I would keep everything in one location, like all those contact information in one location in a folder of who you might need to contact if you have an issue. The login information and the passwords and things like that. There's nothing more frustrating than you getting ready to go log in and I forgot my password. So keep that stuff handy. And it's going to be different for everybody. We're all in this together. Lean on your peer groups. I know some of the feedback from some of the kids is they missed that group work, that interacting with their classmates. So use the technology that we have if we're not in class to kind of reach out to your classmates if you have questions, going through different things you're struggling with. I'm sure there's other classmates that have, maybe that's their strength, and that you can lean on them to get the tips and tricks of how to get through that information and just build that connection with those kids somehow, some way to get that information that you need. So just have that stuff at your fingertips and don't be afraid to reach out to somebody to get the answers that you need.
Great. Dr. Fryer, maybe more with a medical slant on the response. Advice for parents.
So with families who are preparing for remote learning, I agree with Mrs. Woods about getting your kid on a schedule. Prepare now to have them go to bed at a regular time and wake up in the morning at a regular time, eat breakfast, make sure that your kids, have their meals all set out, and that they are expected to have the regular schedule. Too many students and patients of mine didn't have a schedule, even with remote learning. They slept through their Zoom meetings, and it was hard because we know that it was new, and we were all learning as we went along. But we have a better idea of what to expect. We definitely need to make sure that they have a good night's sleep and be able to wake up and do their work during the day, and expect them to do all their things that they're supposed to be doing each day. I think that's really key. Prepare them even now, right now. Have them go to bed early and wake up early.
Did I just follow up with a question for Dr. Fryer?
Go ahead.
I know that we're working hard to put social emotional supports in place for our students, whether they're in person or remote, and to support parents to assist us in that. Based upon your interactions over these several months, are there signs or things that parents should be looking for in their children to indicate that maybe they're struggling and need support that either the family can provide, or the family physician can provide, or the school can provide?
So yeah, if they're not engaging as they normally would, not coming out of their room, not coming down for meals, staying, isolated, it's too easy to do that in remote learning. And so we really do need to be aware that signs of depression and anxiety are fierce at this time with basically with the COVID pandemic. They're feeling it. They see us talking about it, reading about it, seeing on the news. So we really just need to make sure our kids know that they should not isolate themselves. They really do need that family support to talk through it, make sure that they know that this will pass, and to be aware that if they are sleeping too much, not just because they stayed up playing video games till midnight, but because they're just not getting interest and pleasure in their normal activities that they normally do. Bring that up to us, your provider, your teacher, and definitely get them plugged in to a counselor or to see us at the office.
Yeah, thanks for the follow-up. So with that, we're gonna pretty much wrap up tonight's virtual forum on the school district's reopening plans for this year. I'm gonna remind everybody that we have another forum planned for tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. In the meantime, anybody who wants to submit a question can do so via email to the reopeningschools@midlakes.org email. Also, families can go to the midlakes.org/2020 reopening plans to see the complete reopening plan documents that have been sent to the state for review. Things include like testing protocols, remote learning, contact tracing, attendance, nutrition, communications, facilities, health and safety, and school schedules, and a bunch more. There's documents that are being added to that frequently, and any updates will be posted to that section of the website. So feel free to visit midlakes.org, and we'll continue to share information through e-newsletters, the district social media, and emails, robocalls. Mr. Sickles is becoming a star on robocalls. So feel free to reach out. We're here. We're ready to answer questions, work through the issues, and I just want to applaud everybody who's here tonight for being part of the forum, the administrative team. The community doesn't see how long you guys are working, how long your days have been. Usually, this time of year is a little bit different. The summertime is a little bit different than during school, and this year has been just totally turned upside down on its head. So I kind of wanted to recognize the administrative team that are here tonight, those who've been part of this, and everybody else who's associated to Midlake Schools. And with that, I want to wish everybody a good night. Thank you for visiting us. And once again, we'll be on at 10 o'clock a.m. tomorrow. Thanks.
Thank you.